Hi, everyone. I'm James Protin. I'd like to give a special thank you to our sponsors for the podcast, Candelore's Barking Beauties, with 5 locations throughout the region, and His Place Coffee Community and more here in Menneson for hosting us.
Hi, my name is Kelsey Candelore, owner of Candelore's Barking Beauties, where our salon is your salon. We have 5 convenient locations, no appointment needed. All breeds welcome. Any size dog. We are open Tuesday through Saturday from 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. We have 5 convenient locations: Elizabeth, White Oak, Finleyville, Monongahela, and Irwin. Love to have you visit us.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. Today is the first day that we actually have 2 guests. So this is a bonus podcast, actually, because we have with us Pastor Tim Burgan, the lead pastor of the Christian Center Church in Ross River Township, and he's also president of the Full Potential Project, which is the outcome of which is where we're at right now at His Place Coffee Community and more, who has been so gracious to host us. And also joining us is Lisa Lyons, who is outreach director for the church and also operations manager for the coffee shop here. And Lisa, thank you so much, first of all, for being so accommodating and working with us with crazy schedules, trying to get guests scheduled and so on and so forth. But so I think we're going to have a lively discussion today about a lot of things, but the greatest thing, the most interesting thing for me is how you guys arrived at where you're at and what the mission of this place is. Because, you know, on the surface, it's a really cool, hip coffee shop, right? It's in a restored old fire station. I mean, it doesn't get any cooler than that, right? You got a chandelier made from an old wheel, from a paddle wheel on powder wheeler on the Monongahela River. So, you know, this is really, really cool. But when you dig down and drill down into the mission, it's even cooler. I mean, it's really, really something. And I know that there has been quite a journey to get you to this place. So, and you have a background in media and television with Cornerstone Television and so on. And you actually had a show called His Place. So,
well, that's where the idea came from. Originally, when I was doing the television show, we would get people coming all the time because we did over 3,000 of those shows, and we would get people coming in all the time to be on the TV show saying that they drove up and down Route 30 or Route 43 or Route 51 looking for this coffee shop, and they couldn't find it, and we had talked about doing it as a part of Cornerstone Television, and were never able to get around to doing it, never had the funding to do it, and I just kept it in my heart that it was something that I wanted to do, and so we, when we had the opportunity, and I just felt like now is the time. Lisa and I had been working as the outreach director of the church. We'd been working in multiple communities in the Mon Valley because I'm a Mon Valley boy. I like the Mon Valley. Right. We were working with multiple communities, and one day Lisa had worked out an outreach over here in Menneson, telling about what we were doing at the library.
So we've partnered up with a bunch of places. So we partnered up with the library. So we were coming in to do their Christmas programming. Right. So we worked with other organizations. They came in, we set up our whole Christmas event in the library. It was free to the community. So they came out, we fed them lunch, they did crafts. We had a live nativity walkthrough with our church family that came alongside of us. Okay. And so we spent the day over there, and we did that repeatedly for almost 10 years.
Yeah. Really? Yeah. And one of the days we were there, one of the owners of the building, Mary Jo Smith, was there, and I just looked across the window from the library over to the fire station over here, and I said to her, what would you think about a coffee shop going in over there? And she's like, that'd be a great idea. Right. And so one thing led to another, and we ended up, rather than renting the space, because to be honest, the economics of the investment that we were going to put into it made it well worth it to buy the space, and then so that we would put the investment and know that we had it, and so I can have great vision. Everybody can have great vision, sure. But unless you have somebody that comes alongside of you and has the vision, catches a dream with you to help make it happen,
that's a great point.
It's not going to happen, and that's what Lisa ended up doing as the outreach director.
That's excellent. So tell me a little bit, Lisa, about the journey. Once the building was acquired, once it was purchased, right? It wasn't, you just didn't come in and turn on the lights and open the door.
No, we hit COVID. So we started with the architect. So we have built this from the ground up. So it's been that journey going to the architect, said this works, no, it doesn't work. And then it was finding that perfect construction crew to come in and understood what our hearts were, so that when they were doing their end of it, and we came in and said, no, that doesn't work that way, or this is what our vision is, they worked hand in hand and said, okay, we get it. Like, and our contractor was the best.
And he partnered with you.
He did partner with us because he understood what our dreams were and what our heart was and how we wanted to touch this community.
See, that's tremendous, being in the engineering business and construction. You know, when you find a designer that can see the vision that you have and put it on paper, and then find a builder who also sees the vision, and when you close that loop, pretty amazing things can happen.
And Jamie, that's really what happened with each step of the way. Every time we shared the vision with people, they got it. Oh, yeah. They said, just the idea as you look at the place, we wanted to do something that would look more like it fit in Lawrenceville, or that it fit in Shadyside, or it fit on the south side, rather than in Menneson. So when people come into Menneson, they're like, what is this doing here? And that's what we've heard.
Oh, absolutely. And, I mentioned to Lisa the other day, when we were talking, and, at the very beginning of this, before anything was done, you and Mike Korposh and we had breakfast, okay? And you kind of laid out this vision for us. And like I told her, when I walked in here, it's exactly what you explained to us. It is exactly to the T. I wasn't surprised by anything. I mean, I was very impressed as soon as I walked in the door, but none of it surprised me because it's exactly what you explained to us.
Because it's more than, the coffee shop. Yeah, I wanted to do something, when we worked together, I wanted to do something that would be high-end, but would not be expensive. And I knew I needed somebody that was going to catch that vision and make that work, because, I pastor a church. I have a daycare. I've got other things going on. And so I needed somebody that would run this place and have the heart that we had for the vision. And that's where Lisa comes in on a day-to-day basis. I mean, there are stories that you hear every day from people.
Yeah. I said the other day to our church family, we were talking about something down here, and I said, we started out as a coffee shop. And we did, and we knew how to love on her and smile and take care of people as they walk through the door. But community and more is what we stand on now, because they come in and they want to talk to us. They want to share their lives with you. They want you to pray with them. And if you're not here on the floor, they're looking for you. If my baristas have a few days off, well, where are they at? They miss them. They miss that connection, because that's what we have. We are a connector in the city.
Sure, and your kids are amazing, by the way. Your baristas, they're all pleasant and welcoming, and that's the vibe here. Everybody is. I've been sitting out there on my laptop, and people come over and just start to talk to you. And, am I interrupting? No, because I'm a people person. I love to meet people, and I love to hear their stories, which is why we're doing what we're doing right now, right? Because you had a story that intrigued me, and then that led me to Lisa, and then that made the story that much deeper and enhanced it that much more. Can you go into just a little bit of detail about the programming and some part of the mission? One of the things, just to lead into that, is that you're basically turning into a media center, right? Because not only are you hosting my podcast, but you have the Mon Valley Independent sports guys come in here and do their podcast. A great group of guys, Jeremy Salou and his bunch. And I love those guys, and supporting that. We get one more in here, and we're going to be we're going to go to another level. But tell us a little bit about the mission here and some of the programming that you do in this very room that we're sitting in right now.
So this room is converted constantly. Never thought I'd move tables as much as I do. So on Mondays, we have a group that comes from our church. They're called the Nitwits. And nice. No, it's not because they are nitwits. They're not. It's what they do. They knit and crochet. And,
that is very cool.
So they did it at our church, but they wanted to come into the community. Okay. And their second week here, they met a little old lady called Camille. And Camille now comes and needle points with them. But they touch her life every day. They share with her. She shares with them. She calls on the phone and says, please tell them I'm not coming today. But they do more than just their own personal projects. They knit for the community. One of the ladies, we have a girl that we walk through her difficult pregnancy. She was a high-risk pregnancy. We walked through that whole
And what
pregnancy with
coffee shop
her.
does that? What coffee shop gets involved in people's lives?
And
That's
we-
exactly right.
And we connected her with the Westmoreland Diaper Bank that's here. We connected her with Beverly's Birthday. We connected her with New Life Options over in Monongahela. And the ladies started knitting hats. So they knitted baby hats. So they gave them to her, but it didn't stop giving them to blessing her. They made a whole package for her to take to the NIC unit in Children's Hospital because this baby ended up in Children's Hospital in the NIC unit. And this girl got
See,
to
what a
take
story.
hats
That's
and bless
community,
them.
right? That's
Yeah.
community and more. And you know, it's wonderful that you have proven that you can be an entrepreneur, you can walk that journey, you can make money, and you can have a positive impact in people's lives. Okay, it doesn't have to be all about the revenue stream, right? So, I mean, I think that we are all obligated, we're required, okay, to do what's right for everyone. I was raised where it wasn't about me, right? It was about the person next to me. It was about and I tell people when I give sales presentations and things like that, I tell people that their best opportunity is the next person they meet. Right? That's the best opportunity you will ever have, not only to move your business forward, but to also give back and make a difference in somebody's life.
Jimmy, I look at it as, from a positive standpoint, that each of us are created and designed by God for a purpose. Mm-hmm. And the challenge is finding that purpose. You know, that's, Lisa will tell you, being a teacher and dealing with special needs kids and all the things like that, and then all the things that she did at the church before she came here led her to this place. Right. Every person, in Romans it says that we're all given a measure of faith. And that measure of faith is part of the design for who we are. Right. And we're miserable until we find what that is, and we do it. And when we do it, then all of a sudden everything changes. All of a sudden we see the success and the prosperity. And when I say prosperity, I'm not saying everybody's got the finest cars or finest houses, but there's a peace, there's a joy, there's a happiness in knowing that I'm doing what I was designed to do by God.
That is exactly right, and that's what led me to where I'm at. I was never a writer. I never fancied myself to be a writer. In fact, until I started to write the blog 10 years ago, the only thing I'd ever written was a project proposal, right? So, but I had that moment, right? I had a mentor, Reverend Tom St. Clair, God rest his soul. He was the pastor in the First United Methodist Church in Balvernon. And he became a very close friend and a mentor. And, it is very funny because I was raised Catholic, right? And he asked me one day, I was going to the church, and he pulled me aside and he asked me if I would be willing to sit on the board of trustees for the church. And I said, I'm not a member of the church. I'm coming here for this reason, but I'm Catholic by faith. I mean, that's, I was a young man. I was in my early 20s, mid-20s. And he said, that doesn't matter. I need somebody that knows what you know, because we've got this historic church, this old historic church. And I said, well, I guess it's okay. Sure, I'd love to help. So I went to the first trustees meeting in his office a couple evenings later, and they asked me to be the president of the trustees board. And I agreed. And a week after that, there was a tragic fire and the church burned. It was gutted, this beautiful historic church. And it was funny because everybody there started looking at me like, everything was good till you got here. So, but it's a long story, but we don't have time for it right now. But at that moment, at that time in my life, I heard that calling, right? I heard it, but I fought it, and I fought it for a long time, and I struggled with it. And it wasn't until I was much later, maybe 20 years later, when I finally had that aha moment, right? And that's when I started to put not only positive things out in the world, but myself and started to talk about my journey and the obstacles that I faced, the adversity that I had to overcome, right? And people started to respond to that. And, I can't tell you, when I write this blog every morning, okay, I write it for one person. I don't know who that person is, but I know that person's out there, and that's who I write it for. And it doesn't matter to me if 1,000 people read it, as long as that one person that needs it sees it, right? And I think that's kind of where you guys are at. There's that one person that's going to walk in the door of this place that needs to be here, that needs Lisa, that needs you, that needs a prayer, okay, that needs some help. And that's why you open the doors every day. And that's what I get from it.
Some people, what we found more than anything else is that people need hope. Yeah, of course, we're about the gospel message. We're about people understanding that Jesus Christ is Lord. But you can't get there until you understand that somebody does love you, that there is hope for you. One of the things, Jamie, that brought me to this place is that I've traveled around the world, been in over 100 countries around the world, mostly third world and developing nations. And I found a consistency of three things. No matter where I went, if I sat down with a Palestinian, what the United States would call a terrorist, or I sat down with the most ardent atheist in Russia or other places around the world, or I sat with kings and princes or religious leaders, three things were consistent. Number one, everybody wants to be loved. I don't care who you are, I don't care where you're at, everybody wants to be loved. Right. Number two, every parent wants to do better for their children than they did for themselves. I don't care if you're living in squalor in the garbage dump in Mexico City, or if you're affluent in running a nation. You want to do better for your kids. And number three, even the most ardent atheist I've met hope that there's something after this life. Right. Hope because it adds meaning to this life. Yes. And with those things in mind, I was traveling the world doing all the things I was doing. And I felt like, you know what, the people in the Mon Valley need to hear this as well.
It's a powerful message.
In our own community need to know that, because it's, when people walk through the door, that's why Lisa's perfect for this. When people walk through the door, they feel love coming from her. Absolutely. And she trains the staff to do that same thing. They feel a hope coming here. They have a sense that, yeah, you know what, for the first time I feel like I can do better. I can do better. There's something about this place, and I believe it's just, we believe it, and so it's here. Yes. That peace and that love and that joy that comes from Christ, that people won't recognize it necessarily as coming from Christ, but it comes from Him through us, but they can sense it for the very first time when they walk through these doors.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is wonderful. So, Lisa, can you give us a little detail on some of the programming that you're doing here in the show?
So most of our program started at the church. Okay. So it's not that we just jumped in and said, let's try it. Right. We already know what we're doing. We already have fine-tuned it. We've already touched the community coming out of our church.
Right. And you just are bringing it feet on the ground in the community.
Well, why not? Because we know people go to a church. Sure. Yeah, right. We know what they want. Right. They either want our money, they want to shove the Bible down our throat. Sure. They don't understand that we can be loved. Right. So why not here in the community? And so we have our tutoring program here on Monday nights from 6 to 8. The coffee shops close at that time. They consume every table here.
Is that right?
Now we have to have a paid employee here.
Now, are these just young people, high schoolers?
We can go from preschool through high school.
Really?
And then we have adults that are being tutored at other times. Like we have a gentleman that's working on his CDL and says, I don't remember the math. And so we connected him up with someone, and he's learning the math all over again so he can take a CDL through the private counsel industry.
Excellent.
And that's how it's growing, though, is that, as Lisa's mentioning, we have, we're here to meet a need. And as the needs develop, we figure out, okay, can we meet that need? Is that part of our vision, what we can do? And if we can, let's try to do it. And if we can't, then let's try to fit them someplace else. That's the other part of what Lisa talked about, the community, is that we're connected up with the community, so we can send someone we know. And one of the things that broke our hearts early on was that there was an organization that was handing out free diapers, and no one knew about it. And all these single moms were coming in, and they're like, we don't have this. And we're like, hey, do you know about this program? And they didn't know about it, and because of Lisa's connection there, we were able to guide some people in that direction.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
And so that's what we've become. We are a connection. Somebody came in one day and said, you're the connector.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm the connector. He said, because you know where everything is.
Exactly.
And so my next step is I love to get hold of the person that does the GED program here and tell her, why not study here?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the reason I say that is that we have story time once a month on a Thursday, and we're going to have an extra one this upcoming Monday for President's Day.
Okay.
But I went to Marcia, who's at the library, and said, bring your story time to the coffee shop. I'll clear out the room, we'll put the kids here, parents can be out there. She goes, but nobody comes to the library. And I said, trust me. I said, because the kids are going to be in here. We got a great garage door. The parents can see if they're needed.
Absolutely.
And the parents are out there socializing, having that time, talking to other moms, solving whatever problems and supporting each other.
And we have a camera in here, so that way there's security, so the parents know their kids are safe. I mean, that's
absolutely. That's a big deal. Sure, absolutely.
It's just where our world is today.
That's exactly right. Absolutely.
And so they started in all their friend groups that they came with.
Yeah.
This last time for story time, they were all interacting. And then we had Gabby from the Physical Therapy Institute calls me and says, can I come in and just talk to your people as they're coming in about what we do? I said, okay, come for story time, because then you're going to have the full audience of mom.
Yeah, you'll have a full
Well,
house.
there's a new organization just opened in Belle Vernon called BrainWorks. They work with autistic kids, behavior issues, helping with parents and them. Saw her listed on Facebook, immediately messaged her and said, I have this great opportunity for you. I've got a whole bunch of moms that are going to be in my coffee shop on Thursday, March, our 2nd March. I said, would you like to come and hang out with them and introduce? And she's like, texted me back and said, you're doing a great thing. I'm on
that's
my way.
amazing.
You're on my calendar.
Connecting. You're
But that's what
connecting
we
again.
want to do. You
Exactly.
know, let other organizations that are out there that need to touch the community, let us be your source. You know, we've got the program going on. We have they changed their names from Revelation Wellness to Holy Fit. And it's our exercise group. They're here 3 days a week. They're here Monday nights at 6:30. They're here Tuesday mornings at 9. And then they're here Thursday mornings at 10. And so they come in, they start out with a devotion, because their whole point is get fit. Sure. It's not about
And that's
losing
not
weight.
just physical.
It's not about a
Right.
body size. But let's feed your mind and let's feed your soul, because if we get it all together, then we're going to see ourselves differently, and we're going to feel good about ourselves.
Good
So-
health it's whole, right? It's the whole person. It's spiritual as well as and mental as well as physical.
And then on Tuesdays, it turned into a whole other element. So the mom that comes has homeschooling kids, so her boys in tote come to the class, and while they're coming to the class, all these other moms start coming, so we call it our mommy and me, because the kids are playing in another room, baby gate, they can look over and see mom, and moms can exercise. Where can you go and moms can feel that they are taking care of themselves, but they don't have to find someone else to take care of their kids.
And I love this connection aspect, simply because, it's hard enough to successfully operate a nonprofit, right? And we have a robust nonprofit community in the Mon Valley, and a lot of them that people don't know about, right? So it really behooves everybody to work together, and the fact that you're making those connections that's impressive.
We had somebody come in the other day, never met them before, and said, we read your story in the newspaper. I said, well, great. She goes, no, we've come to see how we can volunteer for you. So she told me what her heart desire was, and her heart's desire is to feed the community soup. And her husband's like, you can't do that. You know what the risk is. So she came in and we're talking, and we have a great connection with the school. The students are coming in all the time. They tell us when they're having bad days. They tell us when they're having good days. We know what classes they're taking because we've invested in them. And so we're talking to her about it. So I have to call Ashley over at the school, because she wants to make chicken noodle soup and feed the whole school on
And you're
Tuesday.
talking about Douglas Education Center, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So she wants to come in on Tuesday and feed these students.
And that's great, because a lot of their student body has come here from someplace else.
Yes.
And they're young people, they're on their own, and this gives them a place that they can feel at home, right?
We have one girl. She was gun shy, run away from us as fast as she can. When we were here, she'd watch us build it, and she'd walk past us every day. but she wouldn't talk to us. Like, you invited her in
I invited
for
her
one
in,
of
and
our soft openings.
She was one of the students, and sometimes the students in some of the fields dress really wild. They've got wild makeup on because it's part of the
It's a
theatrics.
creative program.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And she was walking past, and I'd seen her walk past a number of times. We were having a soft opening. I just opened up the door and I said, "You know what? Come on in." It was just invited by our church family, but we invited her to come in, and she's been around with us.
Scared her.
Yeah, it's Jamie. If you're going to change the world, it's really one person at a time.
Absolutely.
It's not.
I believe that completely in my heart.
Yeah, we can't be. I'm not going to influence the president or the Senate or the House, but we can touch with what we're doing here in Menneson. We can touch one person at a time, and we can make a difference. And with your podcast and other things, you know the impact that you can have. And in the bigger realm of things, that's what's going to impact and change our world. If we throw up our hands, then we've just given up, and we can't do that. We can't.
I agree. You can't surrender. And I'm a big believer that I think every person, no matter where you're at in life, can touch 100 people. You know 100 people in your sphere of influence, so to speak. But think about it. So you touch one person, right? That person touches one person. And as that sphere of influence expands with social media now, if it's done the right way, you can literally touch people all over the world and change one person in Europe, change one person in South America. They then take that little ripple and pay it forward. And you're right, that's how the world changes. So what are your plans moving forward for His Place Community More? Are you looking at other locations, expansion?
The plan is really twofold. With what we're trying to do here, it's a number of things. We want to, as Lisa mentioned, we want to find ways to reach each community individually. Okay. And like I said, I'm from the Mon Valley. I like the Mon Valley. My father was a mill hunk. My grandfather was a mill hunk. My great-grandfather was a mill hunk. I'm from the Mon Valley, and I want to see the Mon Valley healed. I want to see it not necessarily restored to what it was, but I want to see the people here are salt of the earth.
Absolutely.
They're amazing people.
Absolutely.
And
we're survivors.
they've lost hope in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. So we want to go into as many broken communities as we can in the Mon Valley and establish either coffee shops, or what we're looking for is also do a farm to table grocer in some of the small communities where they've got to take a bus to Walmart or some other place they don't have a grocer in their community. We want to set up a farm to table grocer, but with the premise of like what we're doing here, where we can do our tutoring program, the reading program,
do your outreach,
all the outreaches, all the various things, and with each community it may be different. With each community, we're finding, one of the big things, if somebody's listening to this and can really help us with this area, one of the areas we're seeing a real lack that we want to help kids with is give them an opportunity to taste what it is to be an electrician, to be a plumber, to be an HVAC, to be a welder, and to come in alongside of some of the contractors and just get a taste. Because if you're raised in a home where you don't have a dad, where you've never messed with plumbing or electrical work or things like that, you're not going to know if you have any kind of aptitude for that.
You don't just know.
But if we can set up a program here where we can get some of these contractors to come in and just spend a couple weeks with a kid, take them on the job and let them have a taste of what it is, and they can see that they actually have an aptitude for it, then we can get them, because some kids are going to college because they don't know what else to do.
Right.
And to be honest, there's going to be a real need for these services, because you can't, try to get a plumber today.
The skilled trades are suffering.
Electrician today.
Right.
It's hard.
And that could be a great feeder program, for the trade and technical schools and for the trades themselves.
And if the kids could just come, 15, 16, 17 years old, they're still in high school and they haven't had the chance, they can do that. That's one of the things we want to do. And we want to go into, like I said, multiple broken communities, McKeesport, Braddock, Charleroi, some of the other areas along the Mon Valley where we can do something like this. I don't want to set up a coffee shop where there's a coffee shop in the community already.
You don't want to compete with somebody that's already there. Right.
It's not about us selling coffee and being the best coffee shop in the community, although I want to
exactly.
do that.
Sure,
I want to do that.
And that's part of it. That has to be part of it. Absolutely.
Well, for me, it gives God glory. The better you do something, Ecclesiastes says, whatever your hand finds to do it with all of your might. And so when we do it with all of our might, we do it to the best, we can impact the community as well. Because if we do something schlock, then you're going to look and say, okay, that's just another Christian thing, Exactly. I want it to be the best that it can be. And so we want to go into communities. Once again, if there's a coffee shop there, we'll put up a greengrocer, where that way they can get their basic needs, they can get their milk, they can get their, some of the basic needs that are needed in that community, and it can be a place of hope, like his place is here. Right. You walk in the grocery store and you feel like, yeah, this is really cool.
This is it. I need to be here.
Hope, and then the tutoring program, the reading program, and all these other programs are going on. So that's part of the long-term vision for the Full Potential Project. So we can do that because I want to see the Mon Valley come back to life. I want to see, and we're just a small part, Jamie. I'm not sitting here saying we are the answer. Listen, when you have a mayor like Ron Mosier who's working very hard here in Monessen to turn things around, and you got various industries, you got you and Michael here trying to turn things around in Charleroi and Monessen and working. It's all part of the puzzle, and we're just trying to do our part. And if you sit back and you say, well, what can I do? Everybody's got a part.
Right. Takes a village, right? I mean, that's not just, a cliche, and I think that the Full Potential Project, I love that. I just love the title of it simply because by doing things this way, we can help the Mon Valley reach its full potential again, and I like what you said because it's not going to look like it did. I'm a product of the 60s, right? I grew up in the 60s and the 70s here in the Valley, born and raised in Charleroi, and I've been here, my whole life other than going away to school for years. But, we can reach our full potential. It's just going to look different than what it did in the past, right? But it's still successful. It's still going to put us where we need to be.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts, a lot of moving parts that need to be put into place. And we just want to do our part. And that's where I think that, everybody that's going to be watching or listening to this podcast can do the same thing. I mean, Jamie, you're doing your part. You're writing the blog. You're doing the podcast. You're trying to bring industry into the area, and because those are gifts that you have, those are skills that you have, and you might not have always known that you have them, but they developed over time because you kept saying yes. You kept saying yes.
You have an open heart and an open mind, and then that's yes becomes easy.
And that's what we're doing. Is that each step of the way, it's like Lisa and I knew nothing about coffee when we opened a coffee shop, but we knew what God wanted to do. We knew that this was something we needed to do that would be a safe place for everybody to feel comfortable. If we came in and just said, we're the Christian Center Church and we're going to establish this work there, then we would have alienated all the other churches. We don't want to do that either. We want to work together with every organization we can, especially the churches.
Well, and we have to be almost non-denominational, right? I mean, everybody has their path, but it's really their parallel paths. We're all going the same place. We're all going the same direction. So, do you ever see going back into the television business here?
Well, when we wired the place, we wired it to do TV.
So yes.
So mainly because the television has changed. I mean, what I was doing when we first entered, we had cameras. Nick's here with the cameras, and his cameras are like a tenth the size of the cameras. We had, I remember the old Saturday Night Live sketch from the Russian television with three CCP1 with the camera that's 10 feet tall. Well, we just about had those with their TK40s and 45s that we had as cameras. And now everything is so much more compact, and we could do it. And people have asked us, have asked over time. In fact, the characters that were on the show have wanted to revive the show at some point. And hopefully we can do that. But it's the more important thing is that we're able to bring the hope into the community. The more important thing is that we're able to help people see that there is a future.
And you're doing exactly that. I mean, that's, this community is the perfect host for this place. There's a lot of places that this wouldn't work. It wouldn't have the same impact, right? But the Mon Valley, in particular, the city of Monessen, this proud city that we're in, I'm an old Charleray Cougar, right? So, there was a time when I'd have had to sneak into Monessen because we had this rivalry, right? But now it's got to be all hands on deck. So it doesn't matter. And I've written about this. It doesn't matter if you're a Greyhound, a Cougar, a Ram, a Troy. It doesn't matter who you are. We all have to be from the Mon Valley, and everybody has to be rowing in the same direction. And sometimes that's difficult. When we talked about that P word, right? So when that creeps in, then all of a sudden, the oars start going in different directions.
But see, the key is what we found. Yeah, there are divisions. I mean, as in human nature. I pastored a church up outside of Somerset, Pennsylvania for a while. There are no African Americans, no Asian Americans, no Hispanics in the area, but they still had prejudice. It was prejudice, the Germans and the English.
Sure.
We look for ways to divide.
We'll find something to divide.
We look for ways to divide. And there are divisions here in the city of Monessen, but what we found is that we're able to, and so far Lisa and I have been, I think, successful in working with all the different organizations, because our bottom line is, what we're working with is that we all want to move the city forward. Sure. We all want to move the Mon Valley forward.
And they're all good people. They all want the best for this city. They just have different perspectives.
But there are certain things, that we can do. When I was in the nation of Kyrgyzstan many years ago, I was able to get 7 different factions of people to work together for one thing. And when I came back, to the Mon Valley, I thought, okay, if I can do that in a nation where I don't even speak the language, and people I'd never met before, we should be able to do that here in the Mon Valley. That's to bring people together to help work toward the same direction.
Sure. My youngest, my stepson's in the Air Force. He was deployed to Kyrgyzstan, so it's that's interesting place. Interesting place. This has been fascinating, and I think we could talk about this forever. But what I'd like to do in the scope of this, and I would encourage everybody that tunes in, and hopefully it's a couple people more than my mom, right? But and I think that everybody should come in and at least just come in and sit down and just feel the vibration that is in this place. There's an energy here. Right?
The challenge for me, Jamie, is this, and Lisa will verify it. My call as an individual is to enable people to become who God wants them to be. I believe every person is designed by God for a specific purpose. And the challenge is that so much of that potential is being wasted because they don't believe in themselves. They don't believe they have a purpose, or enough people have spoken into their lives and said, you're useless, you're worthless, you have no value. And
that's a powerful narrative.
I believe what we are here to do is to enable people to recognize that every person has a gift. It might not be the same. Lisa's gifts are not the same as mine. Jamie, your gifts are not the same as mine. But together, we can all accomplish something. And if we believe in one another, I mean, that's part of what has made his place great, is that Lisa has believed in her gifts. She's trained as a teacher, and yet she's managing all this outreach in the coffee shop, and because she just said yes. And all of your viewers, all of your listeners can do the same thing if they're just willing to take the leap of faith. It takes faith. Faith is doing something you've never done before, saying things you've never said before, and you're going to fall. And that's where the Bible says, listen, when you do fall, God will pick you back up. But just take that leap of faith.
Right. The most important part, and I love this quote, and I'll paraphrase, but the most important part of being good at anything is being brave enough to be bad at it. Mm-hmm. Right? So you have to be bad before you can be good. Okay? So, and I think that really is what you guys did. You had the courage to put this out there, not knowing if it was going to succeed. I mean, this could have fell flat on its face, right? But, you had at least had the courage to take an important investment, okay, and bring it to this city and bring this to life.
You'll not believe how many people came to us and said, you know what? I felt like I should have done the same thing years ago. I felt like I should have done, I felt like I should have put a coffee shop in Minutes. I felt like I should have, and it's my friend Reinhard Bonnke. He was a famous evangelist, reached all of Africa. He said when God spoke to him and said, Reinhard, I want you to reach all of Africa with the gospel. He paused and he thought about it for a while, and he said that he felt like God spoke to him and said, do you think you're the first one I asked to do this? And he was full of pride, and he said, oh, yeah, well, and he said, no, you're the third person I asked, and 2 others told me no. Will you say yes? And for all of us, it's just a matter of maybe you're not hearing God's voice or that still small voice or whatever, but in your heart, you know there's something more that you can do. There's something more that you're called to do. There's something greater that you're meant to do. And despite all the voices, the coaches that beat you up, the teachers that beat you up, the parents that beat you up, the friends that let you down, the people that rejected you, despite all those things, you just got to turn around and just say, yes, you know what? I can do this. I'm a Mon Valley kid, grew up in the armpit of Allegheny County, and where my parents said, when I was a little kid, I had a dream of traveling the world. My parents said, you know what, Timmy, you're just going to work in the mill like everybody else. And you're going to go. But I had this dream of seeing the world, and I just kept at it. And here I saw the world. I met presidents. I talked with presidents. I met one pope and talked with him personally. I had a personal audience with not a Catholic pope, but Coptic pope. I met world leaders, the head of nations in other ways, just because I said yes. Right. And I didn't give up on what I believed to be the right thing.
How many young people had those dreams of came and went? Right, because there was nobody encouraging them to say, you had told me that you, if I'm remembering correctly, you heard that voice, you had that calling, you were young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was a really young child, I was 10, 11 years old, and that's when I felt like God was saying, you're going to travel the world. I mean, right. That's crazy. That's crazy, But
you believed it, and you said yes.
And I just said yes. And what I'm saying is that I want to encourage the people that are listening and watching to understand that it doesn't matter how young or how old you are. If you just say yes now, it doesn't matter. God, the Bible says the plans that God has for you are for hope and a future, plans for your good and not for your destruction. And that means that it doesn't matter when you say yes. God's plans are good for your hope and your future. Exactly. And he wants to make that happen for you. And he's already gifted you. He's skilled you. He has given you everything you need. All you have to do is just say yes.
Well, you're exactly right. And as I said, I heard that voice, and I had that calling when I was not that young, but I was in my early 20s, but I didn't say yes. I said no. I kept it over here. I kept it at arm's length, right? Because I didn't believe.
Right.
Okay? Not that I didn't believe in God, but I didn't believe in the voice and what it was telling me. I didn't believe in myself. Right. So if I had somebody that believed in me at that level, maybe I would have said yes then, but it took me a while, but eventually I did, which is what led me here to us having this conversation today. So I think that if we are able to expose young people to this at an earlier age, right, where, teenagers, that's not a subject that they're used to talking about, right? Especially outside of church or outside of, but, when they hear stories like that, when they hear your story and how you embraced this at an early age, right, and said yes, and again, the opposite of that is how I did. I heard it, but I said no until I was older. I was in my 40s. So those stories, I think, can help shine a light on a path for somebody who's struggling to find it. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter really what age. You're right. I agree with you. I mean, it's Frank Lloyd Wright didn't design anything of any substance till he was in his 70s. Mm-hmm. So, and he's now one of the most celebrated architects in American history.
But that's what we do. Mm-hmm. I mean, because we are that encouragement here. Exactly. And it's not that we come in here to say we're better than any other organization. Exactly. We want to come alongside and we want to say to you, how can we help you? How can we?
This is all about collaboration. Everything here speaks of collaboration.
And we don't want to step on anybody's toes. Right. Just like we have 13 churches that have actually said yes. Where have you ever heard 13 churches saying, yeah, we believe in what you're doing and we want to come alongside. We'll send our people to help you.
It's perfect. It's beautiful.
And we want to make every business shine and every organization, because that's what makes us better.
Yeah, a rising tide raises all ships, right? And I'm full of cliches. You'll find that out.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
But
I'm full of scripture, so I'll spit out the scripture.
But that's a good one, and that's very important. That if you succeed, right, and you're reaching out to me, you're empowering me. You're helping me to succeed, and I'm helping you, and you're paying it forward, and that's a valuable lesson everybody needs to learn.
Just like our pay it forward board.
Yeah, we have a pay it forward board that people can buy drinks for other people.
I saw that the other day, and I did it because I think that is just fascinating. It's a wonderful thing that you do.
But Jamie, the other thing is that I don't believe that God wants anybody to be miserable. I mean, that's the key. Yeah, we go through the ups and downs. I mean, I could tell you, if we had plenty of time, I could tell you stories about my travels and the negative things that happened to me in those travels. But through it all, God doesn't call us to be miserable. He calls us to have hope. He calls us to have joy. And if you are miserable, that means that you're not doing what you've been created to do, what you've been designed to do. And so it's time to do that. Will we have times where we're miserable? Yeah. I get up and until I get my hot chocolate with a shot of espresso, I could be miserable. But we're all good until that point. And if we can make that, and what I've found is that people really don't have problems. What they have is broken focus.
Absolutely.
And if they just make the decision to have that focus, and Christians especially, Lisa's heard me say this a number of times, Christians never have problems. They only have opportunities for God to move.
Well, I look at it that way too. I came to that through business. I think that every problem is an opportunity, and I learned to look at, I'm blessed to have a problem. Right? I'm here to have a problem. So that's not negative for me, or else I wouldn't be here. Right? So the problem that I'm blessed to be here for is an opportunity for me to learn and to grow and become better.
And all of us are called to solve a problem.
Right.
That's part of it. Right. We look at our society, we look at our culture, and God has called each one of us to solve a problem. And the problem that we're solving here is a lack of hope.
That's
lack
wonderful.
Of joy, lack of
that
peace.
is wonderful. So, Pastor Tim, you started walking this. You have a very interesting journey. Now, you've talked about traveling all over the world, but one of the things that is important is your media background, right? So you are a professional communicator, okay, which I think every pastor has to be, because you've got to be able to communicate with your people and get them engaged every Sunday, right? Or else you'll be sitting here talking to an empty church, right? So people have to be engaged with you. I'm very interested in your professional media background with Cornerstone and other things, and how that is contributed to who you are today and what you're doing here at the Christian Center Church.
I started years ago. Actually, I was 15, 16 years old, and there was a radio station in McKeesport, Pennsylvania called WEDO. Okay. And with WEDO, they were looking for people to come in and just run slots. I mean, back then at AM 810, yeah. So it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but they wanted somebody to come in, and I started in there, and I started just operating the machinery, and then it's back in the day where you had to preset the records to spin. We actually had record albums, and carts that you shoved into the slots and things like that back in old technology, and set all that stuff up. And it came to a point where the manager at the radio station at that time saw my potential and allowed me to start doing my own little radio program, and it was very cool. And so I went on to college. I had from an early time in college, I wanted to impact the world, because that was always my dream, and I thought I'd go into foreign service or something like that. And I'd heard, unless you're in the right political realm, you're not going to really get into foreign service and things like that. And so I didn't know what it was going to do. So I ended up walking away from Penn State with degrees in broadcast, a degree in social science, and a degree in religious studies.
Okay.
So I thought,
you covered all the bases.
So it lined me up perfectly to work in Christian television. Okay, so I did there, and at Cornerstone Television at that time, it was just kind of fighting your way through because they had no staff. So you did everything. You ran the camera, you set the lights, you did the editing, you built sets, you painted sets, you moved sets, you moved move books from one place to another that we're shipping out. You did a little bit of everything. And it came down to a point where we were doing a telethon to raise the funds, as we often did. And one of the hosts of the telethon saw me there on the floor. I was floor managing, which is the person that directs all the talent as to where they need to go, let them know what cameras are on and things like that. And I was floor managing on one of the telethons, and the guest speaker saw me and he said, "Tim, why don't you come on up here? Tell people why they should invest in Christian television." And I'm like, okay. And so I did, and it became very natural for me to do that. Because I believe in Christian television, I believe in Christian radio, I believe in Christian media in every way. And I know it has taken a lot of hits over the years because of scams and people not being as righteous as they should. But the bottom line is, if you could take the most powerful media, as you're doing right now here with Nick, take the most powerful media to bring a positive message, the message of the gospel to the massive amount of people, you can offer them hope. I believe that Jesus would use social media. I believe that he would have done that. And so that's where I started with it and worked my way on up through to where I became the vice president of Cornerstone Television for a while. But how I ended up doing the His Place program was Ron Hembry had been brought on to the station, and we had talked with him about doing what we called a mass appeal program. And we sat down and designed this mass appeal program to figure out, okay, how can we reach, because basically Christian television was reaching little old ladies and people that were really into having Bible preaching told to them. And we thought, you know what, we got to find a way. This is the most powerful message in the world. And we made it. Jim Baker said to me one day, he said, "Tim," he said, "Hollywood has the ability to make anything that's fake look real. And Christian television has the ability to make anything that is real look fake." And when I heard that comment, I said, "You know what, Jim, you're right. You're right. We have made the gospel message very plastic." And so when we were looking at creating this mass appeal program, we designed it in a coffee shop, so that way it would be something that would be comfortable, and we worked it out along that line. And Ron did it for about 6 months, and I just felt like he was a preacher. I mean, Ron was such a great minister of the gospel, and putting him behind a counter in a coffee shop, it worked for a little bit, but he just really wasn't comfortable there. Right. And that's when Cornerstone came to me and said, "Tim, would you be willing to do this?" And so I ended up doing it for 20 years. Doing it in thousands of television shows, 100 different stations across the country, plus up on satellite, and we were seen around the world being able to do that. And it was all little vignettes. We would spend 7 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes in any segment to just present the gospel message in a way that people can understand it. That's part of the challenge. As we mentioned before the broadcast here, that we were, when the book of Acts happened, when Acts chapter 2 happened, and the day of Pentecost happened, as a charismatic and Pentecostal, I look at that as actual tongues, and that people were speaking in a language that other people can understand. But today, I believe the interpretation is that we need to be able to present this message to everybody, blue collar, white collar. We need to be able to present this message to white and black and Hispanic, and we need to be able to present this message to rich to poor. We need to be able to present this message to everyone in a way that they can understand it. And over the years, it's happened that it's become so religious that we've forgotten that it's about relationship. Right. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here.
And it has to be a challenge to do that without watering it down or homogenizing it so it's palatable for everybody. So to get the powerful message to where everybody understands it and everybody can relate to it, that's a challenge. It's quite a challenge.
But when it comes down to, and Jamie, when you're talking to people about relationship, okay, Jesus, this is my personal opinion, people may freak out, but Jesus didn't die on the cross to start a religion, okay? God sent his son so that he can have a relationship with us. And sin stopped that relationship. And so we've got this thing where Jesus went to the cross for what reason? So that we could have relationship with him. And so it's all about relationship.
Absolutely.
When we're talking about faith, we're really talking about relationship. We get caught up in traditions. Yes, traditions are good because they help us to remember.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And we go through the different things because they help us to remember. Why do we put a Christmas tree in? It helps us to remember the joys of childhood, the joys of growing up in healthy homes, the joy of what the season means. And so we do all these various traditions to remember, but if we lose the relationship,
That's exactly right.
then we've lost everything. And that's where, if we can come back to that, and that's, it does bring us back to his place, because that's what this is about, where, as Lisa mentioned earlier, we can, there are a lot of people that come through these doors that would never come through a church.
Right.
But they're willing to sit and talk about their relationship and what they're going through, and we're able to share about our relationship and what makes the difference.
Sure, absolutely, and everything is relationships, right? Whether it's business, personal, whether it's faith, it doesn't matter. It's all about a relationship, So, well, listen, I mean, we've had a great conversation, and I know Lisa probably has to get back to work. So
somebody's got to run the place. I
Somebody
don't know what
has
it's
to
doing.
run the
I don't know
place.
what's going on out there with
Yeah.
her back here.
But so thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story, both of you. And I appreciate your friendship and the relationship that we've built around his place. And so thank you very much. And I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. And God bless you.
Well,
That's
Jamie,
great.
we're glad to have you here, and we're glad for the message that you're promoting of live, love, learn, pray, and inspire, because it's going to change people's lives, and it's you
That's
doing.
the hope.
It's exactly what we were talking about.
We talked
It's
about hope.
you
That's the
doing.
hope.
It's you doing what you're gifted to do. That's bringing life and hope to people
Right.
everywhere.
That's what it's all about. So thank you so much.